Politics is defined as getting what, where, when, and how. But in the mix, many things come to play to shape the political fortune of any country.
Honorable Minister, this is how you misinform the public.
From the political actors to the electorate, campaign to voting, from debates to policy decisions, big events happen to engage us in constant conversation.
That's what we're looking for. Not some people who are talking about ethnicity. No.
Who is on your mind?
Don't worry.
Join me every day on Politics Tonight, where we dissect issues that shape our political destiny. Politics Tonight, weekdays on TVC News.
Every week, Green Angle, in partnership with Wild Aid, will bring you a documentary series on environmental issues affecting Nigeria's amazing biodiversity, from climate change, air pollution, and wildlife conservation. We will be traveling across Nigeria to
And after the demise of the Ondo State Governor, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, the acting governor, Aiyedatiwa, has now been sworn in as a substantive governor of the state. His swearing in has made some of the cabinet members of the deceased governor to resign, saying they are loyal to the former governor even in death. Welcome to Standpoint. I am Precious Amayu. Now to our conversation of the day. The former political aides to the late governor, Ondo State, Oluwarotimi Akeredolu, have hurriedly tendered their resignation letters, citing their loyalty to him. They include a commissioner, special advisors, and assistants appointed by the late governor, Akeredolu. Now, this is coming as the new governor, Honorable Aiyedatiwa, took charge of the affairs of the state after being sworn in as the 7th civilian governor of the state on Wednesday by the state's chief judge. The aides hinged their decision to resign on the demise of their benefactor, the late Governor Akeredolu, but would truncate the legacy of the former governor, or will the incumbent Aiyedatiwa continue with the former boss agenda? Also, the politicking of who becomes the next deputy governor of the state has also started. And let's also bear in mind that the politicking for who is going to be the next governor of the state, elected governor of the state, has also started. And so these are all of the intrigues playing out in Ondo State. These are critical times in the political lifestyle of the state, and joining me to talk about this is Chairman APC Southwest, Isaac Kekemeke. He joins us from Ondo State, and also joining us via Zoom is Dr. Thomas Wilson Ikubese, a social commentator. Good to have you both.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Let me begin with you, Mr. Kekemeke. I know there have been a lot of, in fact, torrents of reactions trailing the death of the former governor. But I just also wanted to ask you, before we delve into governance, what it will look like going forward. Just talk to us about, your initial reaction when you heard about the death of the former governor and the impact and implication for the Southwest, even Nigeria.
Well, it started off shock, and shock. You know that the governor had been ill for some time, and all of us had honestly offered prayers for his quick recovery. And so when he came back in September, we're thankful to God that he had recovered. All he needed to do was to rest and recuperate. Unfortunately, he had to go for medical checkup, and he gave up the ghost. So it was shock for everyone, for me and for all the citizens of this state, for Western Nigeria and for Nigeria. The implication is that all are agreed, both Governor Akeredolu's foes and friends are agreed that it was a voice for the oppressed, a voice against injustice, a voice for the rule of law, and one who spoke up at times that many feared to speak. Remember that he was a champion for the local police, otherwise called Amotekun in the Southwest, when it was apparent that the security of lives and properties of our people had become endangered. He also spoke for Southern Presidency as chairman of the governors from the South. So he was a pioneer in that area. And in many other areas, when many fear to speak, Rotimi Akeredolu had the courage to speak. So in that wise, Nigeria and the Southwest did lose a voice, a fearless voice for that matter, a voice that was courageous for that matter. That's one of the greater losses that as a nation we will suffer at the demise of Governor Akeredolu.
And what about your party? What does this also mean for your party, especially in Ondo State? People thought that, look, when he ran for second term, it was going to be an easy win. And for a lot of people, it was because he has endeared himself to the people of Ondo State. Where does this put your party now?
Well, our party had been thrown into some mourning and confusion and some instability, leaving us with the challenge of how to manage the party and make it stable. Like I did say yesterday, we didn't have such a united party, but we had a stable party arising from first the meeting of 2018 with President Bola Tinubu, when himself, Governor Oshoba, Baba Akonde, and a host of other leaders, Chief Akinyele and co, came to broker peace for the party in 2018 and set up what was then known as the Ondo State Advisory Council of the APC. By virtue of that action, the party decided to line up behind Governor Akeredolu, donated stability to him, donated unity to him, and so we stood united, despite the fact that many people had reservations or many people felt excluded by the way and manner the party was run. Now that the governor is no more, we've lost that leadership, that charismatic leadership that we deferred to. So it will take Governor Aiyedatiwa some effort, more than ordinary effort, to be able to command that loyalty, or maybe that respect, for all of us to subdue our different political interests to stand with him. So it's a lot of confusion. Many people who felt that they were excluded are now thinking that they will have to probably assert themselves. So it's some big challenge for us. The man that held us together is no more. The man that we deferred to, for which a lot of people donated loyalty or donated stability, is no more. So it's confusion for us. It's a very trying period for our party in the state.
And I will get to Governor Aiyedatiwa in just a moment, and especially the role you will have to play in your party and in the state. But let me bring in Dr. Thomas into the conversation. Dr. Thomas, a lot has been said about the legacy of the former governor, Rotimi Akeredolu. But some people have said that, look, all the events, the political intrigues are wrangling that played out in Ondo State just before he died, sort of puts it in some sort of dent, as it were, on that legacy, because those were his last days. How do you react to that? Dr. Thomas, the question is for you. All right, looks like there is a connection issue there with Dr. Thomas. Let me get back to Mr. Kekemeke while we're trying to fix that. All right, so Mr. Kekemeke, you were speaking about the current governor, and you were saying that he has to do just more than enough to garner that kind of loyalty that the former governor had. First of all, let's talk about that political wrangling we saw within your party. What sort of division did it create within your party, and how did your party react to that?
Well, first, like I said, by 2018, there were intergroup wranglings. But post-2018, and just before Governor Akeredolu's demise, as a result of his ill health, there developed rancor between the inner group that claimed to have produced him. And what we saw was a succession battle, or a battle for who will have the upper hand within that government group. Of course, this was orchestrated by a desire for succession in 2024. So it was a group fight that turned out to be a fight within the party. And for close observers, or for those of us who are within the system, we knew that that didn't have too much to do with the bigger party or the larger party. The party remained intact, but the group, otherwise called the Aketi group, which Governor Aketi himself had said should cease to exist, continue to exist in a subterfuge manner, and then the struggle for who becomes the leader exacerbated the struggle, the crisis. Now that is settled, and I think that is sorted, sadly, with the exit of the governor. So whatever anybody wanted had happened.
Well, Mr. Kekemeke,
okay.
There is no way, when you said that, the party itself wasn't affected, but there is no way that some members of the party, or even the leadership of the party in the state, wouldn't have taken sides.
They did. And that's what I'm saying. They did. But all of that was within the group that claimed to be Team Aketi, which was instrumental to the support of Governor Aketi during his emergence in 2016 and in 2020.
And that Team Aketi
that
is still...
Not...
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
After the 2020 elections, Governor Aketi himself openly declared that he didn't want that, but he never truly succeeded in making sure that they were reined in. So we had that fight. The deputy governor was a member of that team, and most of the people who fought were members of that team. It was about who succeeds Governor Aketi. As it is now, there is a successor and there is a governor.
And which means that, from what you just said, you said the deputy governor at that time, who is now the governor, was also a member of that team. And that team were the ones who were fighting, from what I understand, against him, who took sides with the governor. And that team is still a part of the APC today. Where does that leave the governor in terms of his standing in the political structure of the state?
Well, I have advised, and I'll continue to advise, that Governor Aiyedatiwa has to be statesmanly. He has to ensure that what Governor Aketi ordered is effectively carried out, to ensure that we should kill the party within the party. We should kill groups and sections within the party. And then we should have the party, as advised by President Tinubu in 2018, and even as recently as a month or two ago. We should now have a united house. And we should not allow some people to say they are Team Aiyedatiwa and then begin to try to be holier than the Pope and begin to claim that they are responsible for his success or for his inauguration. This is key. And begin to also, he must learn to forgive and forget those members of his own team who struggled with him, who tried to ostracize him, who tried to impeach him, who tried to overdo him, who tried to do all that they did to have some upper hand with regards to succession in 2024.
I'll come back to you on that, because you just raised a very interesting point. There are interests on all sides, and managing those political interests is very key at this time. But let me get to Dr. Thomas. I understand that we have that smooth connection with him now. Dr. Thomas, I was asking you earlier about the legacy of the former governor Akeredolu and how people have said, look, while he did well, as governor and endeared himself to the people, but the political rancor and wranglings we saw in the states, just before his death, might have put a dent on all of that legacy. I want to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, just like the content of my release shortly after Governor Aketi passed on, everyone will have to come and do their bits before leaving the stage. Arakunri did his bits, which one can actually point at so many things that he did here and there in terms of infrastructure, in terms of developmental legacies in the state across board. And one can actually give him kudos for some of those things that he did before he passed on. It's not possible that you will score 100% on the political sheet. And of course, according to the African tradition, you don't speak ill of the dead. So the little one that he has left to accomplish, I think the governor that just came in, Mr. Aiyedatiwa, will continue from where he stopped. So we do hope that where he stops is where the new government will continue. People will have different opinions depending on which side of the divide you belong. But if you ask me, I would say he has done a bit. Maybe he could have done more. Maybe he did more than he was being expected to do. But one thing you can't take away from him is that he was a very frank person. He never made bogus promises that he would not be able to achieve. Sometimes some people even laugh at him that he's not acting like a politician, because a politician will tell you things they would not do in 100 years. But that is not typical of Aketi. If he wouldn't do a thing, he wouldn't tell you he was going to do it. So I think for that, the state is going to miss him largely.
He was always very outspoken. I think that's one thing everybody will remember him for. But I also wanted to ask...
Very bold also.
Very. Yeah. He was very vocal about the things he believed in. But I also wanted to ask about the issues around, that transition and handover when there is the principal who is having, whether it's health challenges or is indisposed. And then, because we've seen it before at the presidential level, where it took a lot of conversation, it took a lot of push, it took a lot of people, standing up to say, you have to hand over. And I'm speaking about the former president, Aiyedatiwa, handing over to Goodluck Jonathan. Is there anything that can be done to say it doesn't have to be after death, when it seems as though the person who is in charge can no longer perform his duties accurately? That there should be that handover?
You see, the Constitution is very clear that where a principal, in this case either the governor or the president, deems himself unfit to continue with the activities of office, his activity should be handed over to the next in command, in this case a deputy governor. One would expect that when now the late Aketi saw that he was not in the best state of health to continue, maybe he should have just tendered his resignation, passed it to the House of Assembly, and then hand over the reins of power to the deputy governor. But again, there's this hope we have in Africans. We always believe that at the last minute there could still be some miracles, and maybe that hope that, well, I could still get healed somewhere along the line, even if the doctors say that there is no hope for this condition. Maybe terminally there could just be some miracle, and all of the drama that we saw towards the transition is absolutely unnecessary. Unfortunately, it may surprise you to also know that he may not even be in the full know of some of those drama that were going on, because at that point in time, his health was deteriorating, and he might not be in the best form, the best shape to take certain decisions, to say certain things, but the people around him, end up taking some decisions for him, because it's not supposed to be a thing that should be hidden. Again, that is why it says an African thing. If you are ill, you are a leader, the people should know what is the illness, what is the diagnosis. But in this part of the world, we hide things. Even those who are not in political office, we hide things. Even when we lose our loved ones, we don't want them to go through autopsy because we feel, okay, let's respect the dead. So all of the drama we saw, Mr. President coming in to intervene, was absolutely unnecessary. It's all a part of play towards 2024. And like I've always said, if the purpose of political power is to render selfless service to the populace using the commonwealth of the people, there should be no desperation. And that was why in 2019, when I ran for the office of the president, one of the things that I mentioned is that we should make political office less attractive. That way, you wouldn't see people wanting to break their necks, break their back, wanting to get in there at all costs. If civil servants, for instance, earn something similar to what the state governor earns, if we have a situation where every month you have publication of income and expenditure of government in and out, if we have a situation where we have a special anti-corruption court, where those who are found guilty within 6 months are sentenced to life imprisonment, and governance is made transparent. Someone will come and tell you, come and run for office, and you say, I'm not interested, because you know you're going there to work. And if you go there and do something other than work, you will go in for it. But what we have at the moment is very opaque, it's very robust. You see people go into political office and become wealthy overnight, and nobody's asking questions. So that's why you see that desperation. People want to do everything. They want to, do what they can do to make sure they get into office, because when they get into office, they know it's a lifetime ticket, to say bye-bye to poverty. So until we address the Jews in political office, this kind of confrontation will continue, because it is clearly stated in the Constitution that where the governor is incapacitated, the deputy should take over. So once we have that kind of a scenario and the offices are made less juicy, we will never have this kind of scenario that we have. Well, until we do that, we continue to have this over and over, unfortunately, so again.
And Dr. Thomas, let me ask you this before I move to Mr. Kekemeke. It would seem that every time a governor has a challenge or a problem with his deputy, the State House of Assembly becomes the weapon. I mean, what do you make of the role, or what's your assessment of the role that the State House of Assembly played in all of this?
The State House of Assembly is supposed to be the middle point when we have such crises. But unfortunately, not just in Ondo State, across the states of the Federation, a situation where the State Houses of Assembly have become appendages to the executive, and where they are not getting their allocations directly. It somehow reduces the power of the Speaker and members of House of Assembly. Like you could see what happened in Rivers State, where Chief Wike said he bought forms for all members of the State of Assembly, and all of those are contested. So how would you not expect loyalty, to be to that individual? So the State House of Assembly is supposed to play that objective role, but we have not seen that over time, not just here, virtually in all the states where we have crises between Mr. Governor and the deputy. They always go in the direction of the governor, because, he who plays the piper dictates the tune, because the Houses of Assembly are not independent, so to say. So let's do hope that in the next dispensation we see a House of Assembly that will be truly independent, and their finances will not be at the picks and pegs of the governor of the state.
Let me get back to Mr. Kekemeke and bring him into the conversation. Mr. Kekemeke, you are an APC chieftain, not just in Ondo State, but in the Southeast. What we saw that wrangling and that bickering between the State House of Assembly and the former deputy governor, who is now the governor. Can you give us an idea of the state of relationship between the State House of Assembly and the governor at the moment?
Well, let me just first say that quickly, that Dr. Kubese is right in some of the propositions he made, that it is high time we make these offices less lucrative, so that we can have less desperation amongst politicians. I think that point is valid. As for the relationship between the governor and the legislature at the state level, even at the national level, it has also to do with the lack of independence, financial autonomy of that arm of government. Second, I just add this, that it has to do with the quality of people that we send to that arm of government. The desire to get more than is due, more than their salaries and influence, is responsible for this idea of kowtowing at all times to the executive branch of government. We hope that one day we will get there. The other thing is that rather than people being loyal to the system and to the institution they represent, people have chosen to be loyal to individuals who are the aims of affairs of the state. This is one of the reasons why we have problems. I know that now, talking about the relationship between the present governor and the House of Assembly, I do know that efforts are being made to have a rapport so that the work of the state will go on unhindered. I know that the governor has been trying to speak to the speaker and to functionaries of the legislature and to other members of the legislature to work together as a team. The important thing is that we are mourning. It is sad this happened, but government must commence and then continue to function effectively. And if that has to be done, there has to be a working relationship between the executive branch of government, exemplified by the governor, and the legislature. I think efforts have been made in that regard. There is no more impeachment. The president has been able to call that off. Again, it is in the hands of the new governor to embrace everyone, including members of the legislature, and assure them that he will not be vindictive, that he is ready to work and work. And once that is done, I think they will move.
But Mr. Kekemeke, you have said that, sorry to interrupt you, but you have said that both sides should focus on governance, but we also know the election is just around the corner. Any moment now, the politicking for and campaigning will begin. All sides have interest, which was the major issue in the first place. Do you see both sides being able to work together with that kind of interest?
I think so, because they are not the only constituents in the party. The party is made up of very many people outside the governor and the people in the legislature. There are also many other leaders and many other interest groups within the party who also have interest in the 2024 elections. And the chances of anyone will be determined by what anyone had done in the past, anyone is doing now, and what anyone will do in the nearest future. So it's not just about 2024. It's not as if 2024 is just there for a take. No. The leadership of the party, the leadership of our country, unfortunately for us, which is even from the Southwest, our president is from the Southwest. And then the citizens of Ondo State, party leaders and members, they are going to be interested. They are going to decide who picks. Even though some temporary situations, some offices can confer advantage for you, it's not absolute. So I think if you are interested in 2024, the first thing is to move the state forward. The first thing is to add value. The first thing is to demonstrate that you have capacity. The first thing is to demonstrate that you have a large heart. Look at what had been done in the past. Look at what you are doing now. And then you can be sure that luck may smile at you.
Right, so let's take a break. When Standpoint returns, we're going to explore this idea of interest and politicking ahead of the 2024 election in Ondo State. Let's take a break. We'll be back in a moment.
Sometimes it's the story that calls. At other times, the people just want to be heard.
School, I need students, but I need teacher.
Can't continue like this.
Their voices re-echoing through time itself.
We haven't done anything.
If the tide is high, everybody run for safety.
Their tears leave a sweet sour taste for all. Their demands, a familiar call beckoning for change. In our world, no one expects a disaster to happen. But when it does, we'll be there to x-ray all sides, from the east to the west, north and south. Community Forum will examine the oddities and challenges to economic development, as well as issues yearning for government intervention. Watch fresh episodes of Community Forum on Sundays by 9:30 p.m. only on TVC News.
Every major news story is with many perspectives and layered with different levels of impact.
Hello. What time did this happen? We will be right there.
At TVC News, we follow the big and major news, gathering the facts, witnessing the outcome.
I am here live at the aftermath of the approval of the new national minimum wage.
your TV station of the year, not just for breaking news, but for being first, fair and accurate. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Hello everyone, and compliments of the season to you. Now, singular art objects is often...
Thanks for staying with us. We are still looking at intrigues and just all the developments in Ondo State in the wake of the death of the former governor and the swearing in of Governor Aiyedatiwa, what that death means, and then what lies ahead, the task ahead of the current governor. I'm speaking with the chairman, APC Southwest, Isaac Kekemeke, and also Dr. Thomas Wilson Ikubase, who is a social commentator. Thank you both for staying with us. But let me come to you, Dr. Thomas. How key, because we're speaking about all of that interest. We saw how people were taking sides, because we spoke to a lot of people from Ondo State while that rancor was on. And we saw how people were taking sides. Even civil society organizations took sides. And so how key is it for the governor to be able to manage all of this interest if he's going to have a very effective administration?
Well, what we expected to happen is what eventually has happened in terms of power transition. That's what I mean by that. When Mr. Governor was ill, we expected that the ethics of the Constitution will come to play and power will be handed over to the Deputy Governor at that time. And that eventually has happened. So there is no break in governance. Things are going the way they should go. Now, what we expect from Mr. Governor at the moment is to put those events behind him. There's no doubt that he's been hurt. Certain interests that didn't want the power to be handed over to him, even though it was his constitutional right to have the power at that time. That has been a thing of the past at the moment. Now he is the governor. So what is important for him is to push the governance of the state forward. If he's going to be thinking about the people that has hurt him, there's no way he will move forward. If he's going to listen to people that will counsel him to go and hit one or two people that were instrumental to the crisis that we saw, it means he will not move forward. So very importantly, he will need to put those incidents behind him and go ahead to implement what we had on the table that Governor Aketi wanted to implement, because they had a blueprint of what they wanted to implement. So you should go ahead, implement that. At the same time, you have to put all the camps together, because we have different camps, even within the APC at the moment, and even outside of the APC, people who are sympathetic to him, some who are sympathetic to some other camps. So he will need to play the role of a father, which he is at the moment to everyone in the state. So he mustn't show partisanship. He should be able to embrace everyone and see that he takes developmental strides that will take the state forward. But if he's going to be maintaining camps and say, okay, this person was the person that didn't want the power to be handed over to me, then it means he will never arrive there. And one way or the other, it will tell. But he must also understand that history is beckoning, like I issued in my press release yesterday. Whatever he does now, history will record it. And some of the people around him, they wouldn't mention them. He's the one that his name will be mentioned. So it's important for him to see that the development of the state, the progress of the state, the working of the polity is what he focuses on for the rest of the administration.
And some have said, and I'm staying with you, Dr. Thomas, some have said that, look, he should put on hold his governorship ambition, but the election it's just in 2024, and so politicking has started. Like I was saying earlier, how effectively can he manage that governorship ambition if he has one, and then governance in the state?
All right, number one, Mr. Governor has not come out to declare that he's running for the 2024 gubernatorial election in Ondo State. He hasn't said that openly. Number two, there's this saying that what will become of your tomorrow is predicated on how you handle today. Now that he is the governor, he has the finances of the state, he has the power, he has everything in his hands. So whatever he does, he's going to tell on how the people perceive him and what the chances will be if at all tomorrow he decides to run, for the office of the governor. So for me, I think what is important at the moment is governance. Politics should be secondary. If he governs well, if he decides to come up tomorrow and says he wants to run for the office of the governor, the people will rise up and say, oh, yes, we saw what you did with power for the few months that you were there as the governor. But if he doesn't govern well, if he allows politics to overshadow governance, then the same people will say, we gave you power. You had power for so and so number of months. You didn't do well with it, so we're not going to vote for you again. Now the fact that one has financial power, political power, doesn't mean you will necessarily win an election. We have seen governors who have lost their second term base to people who are not even in government. So that's why I'm saying what is important at the moment is governance. He should not allow himself to fall into the traps of politicking against the instrument of governance. Governance first, the people first, the progress of the state first. If he has an ambition, like I said, he hasn't announced it, even if that will come, it should be secondary. If he does well, as the governor in the next couple of months, I think his chances will become brighter if at all he decides to run.
And to Mr. Kekembeke, with your knowledge of the antecedents of the current governor, are you optimistic of effective governance?
Yes, let me just say that, one, I believe that the governor has the right to run in 2024. Second, I also believe that he needs to focus on governance. But there's a tiny line, very tiny line, between promoting your ambition and then running government effectively. Unfortunately, he came in at a time that the state is in an election mood. I know him. He's been deputy governor for about 3 years. He's worked in the private sector. I think that he has the capacity, the competence to run government effectively. But he must be his own man and must be willing, very willing to stand for what is right, irrespective of what those around him will suggest to him. I think this is the most important decision he has to make, whether to continue with the legacy of his former boss with necessary modifications, because he is an individual. He has his own perceptions to life. He has his own priorities. But of course, those the fundamental point, that is the point to advance the well-being and welfare of the people, remains constant. But modus operandi may differ. How he will handle this by winning himself off support groups and people who surrounded the former governor, who caused the rift between him and the governor, is key. Some of those people are still around. I wish that new people will not come around him and create rift between him and others. I think he needs to learn from that experience and put all of that behind him and move forward. But he has the capacity. I think he has the capacity.
But everything he does now will be scrutinized, and it's going to be scrutinized in terms of, his body language towards the legacy of the former governor. So I don't think it's a win-win situation for him, whatever he does. But I also wanted to ask, because talking about being scrutinized, there were those who felt like those appointments he made on that same day was too early, especially because he had declared 3 days of mourning. What's your assessment of all that he has done, the initial steps he has taken?
As far as I'm concerned, those appointments are not very heavy appointments. The chief press secretary has resigned, and most governors appoint chief press secretaries in the first day of their governance, and maybe yes, maybe not. I give it to him that that does not sound to me to be too hasty. Then the other appointments are appointments that have to do with special assistants, people who just assist him. They are like personal to him. They are not that kind of high caliber governmental appointments. So I think they are necessary appointments for him to take off. For instance, a personal assistant in charge of the government house, because a vacuum had existed. They are not anything too serious. I don't think we should judge him by those appointments. There are many more appointments to be made. I don't think we should judge him by those appointments.
He's one of his biggest tasks now is trying to get a deputy. We understand he's shopping for a deputy, and then there are a lot of interest, whether within the party, at the state level, national level, and himself. He will also want to get someone he can work with rather. What do we know now about those the names on the table?
Well, what I know is that the deputy governor cannot come from the South Central districts where he comes from. The other thing that I know is that the ticket upon which he has become governor was a North-South ticket. The former governor came from the North and he came from the South. So you may consider the completion of the North-South ticket by picking a deputy from the North Central district. Otherwise, the Central Central district is also open to him. He may also choose from there. Of course, that will lead to a rejig of some of the appointments that are already on ground. I think that he should consult within the state, outside of the state, consult stakeholders within the polity, and then make a choice. But I think the decision should largely be his, because who is able to work with is key in this choice. But Southern Central District is surely excluded, because we cannot have the governor and the deputy governor from the same Central District. If I were him, I probably would pick from the Northern Central District to finish up the South, North, or the North-South ticket.
Dr. Thomas, considering what happened just before the death of the former governor that led him to where he is today, that wrangling, I'm very sure that when he's speaking a deputy, he is going to be really, really careful and cautious. But what should he be looking for away from, all of the politicking and picking from one region of the state or the other? What exactly should he be looking for? Dr. Thomas, the question is for you. Dr. Thomas, indicate that you can hear me. All right, we'll try. All right, Dr. Thomas, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly now.
All right, sweet. Okay, I was asking you that beyond all of the politicking around whether he should pick from the north or the south or the central of the state, what exactly should he be looking for in terms of picking a deputy governor, considering what happened between him and the former governor?
You see, when Chief Kekemeke was giving his analysis about where he should pick from, he has given you what appears like the ideal. The former governor is from the northern zone and he is from the south. So now that the former governor has left the scene, he is from the south. So probably expects someone from the north to come over and take over from him. But you see, each time we advance this politically correct explanation, I'm saddened deeply inside of me. Unfortunately, that is still where we are. And the question is, when are we ever going to grow to the point where all we look forward to is excellence and nothing but excellence and transparency? And that's why you will see a Nigerian travel from the shores of our nation, go to other countries, and we stand for elections, and those nationalities, white men, Asians, Caucasians, they will vote for that person without minding where he comes from. But in this part of the world, even from the state where you come from, that is discrimination. Somebody is from the south, someone is from the north, someone is from the central. When are we ever going to grow beyond the point that we'll keep compartmentalizing position? I think what is important the most is, what does the individual have to offer? What is the quality that this person has? What are the antecedents of this person in the small political offices he has held, whether in his association, on the street, in his areas? I think these are things that matter. What is he likely to bring to the table? Until we are able to move our polity to the point that we will dissolve it of, tribalism and regionalization, I think we are yet to begin. But at the moment, this is where we find ourselves. So the governor is at liberty to choose from wherever he wants to choose, but whoever is going to choose, for me, what is most important is that the person must have that altruistic, selfless capacity to be able to work for the people. One who has integrity, one who has not soiled himself or his name in the past, one who is ready to work for the people, and most importantly, be ready to follow Mr. Governor in actualizing the position of his office. Because, I've also canvassed that the deputy governor should have rules distinctly different from that of the governor. So if an administration fails, you can say it is the governor's role that failed, it is the deputy governor's role that failed. But at the moment, we don't have that. We only have office of the governor and what he stands to do. So if an administration fails, both the governor and the deputy governor fail at the same time. So I think Mr. Governor should choose somebody he can work with, somebody that will be able to, listen to him, wouldn't give him stress, so to say, but most importantly, one that has integrity, that has a vision.
But Dr. Thomas, apologies for butting in. Are you saying that it is okay, whilst the governor is from the south, to also pick someone from the south, especially in a state where some people already feel like, and it happens in every state where people feel like they're marginalized?
You see, when people talk about marginalization, it is a political class, the elite, that talk about marginalization. The common people on the street do not care who is there. It is the political class that say, let this thing come to my zone so that I probably can have a chance of getting in, so that my friend, my colleague can get in and I'll be able to get something from that person. The common man on the street doesn't care who is in that place. What they want to see is governance. What they want to see is 24-hour power supply, running water, employment, the system that is working. That's what the common man is interested in. It is the political class that create this dichotomy of, it is in the south, it should come to the north. Why? Because they are calculating that if it comes that way, they will benefit from the system. And that's why I've always advocated that until we make governance less attractive, then we continue to have all of those explanations that don't hold water to me as far as I'm concerned, because whoever is there, what we want to see is good governance. But at the moment, this is where we are. This is the reality on the ground, because the governor is from the south, so we wouldn't expect that to pick somebody from the same zone with him. But like I did say, if Mr. Governor is an Elajeman, if the deputy is an Elajeman, if the Speaker of House of Assembly is an Elajeman, and in Ondo State, we have 24-hour power supply, we have running water, we have astute security, we have industry that employ. Who is going to bother and say, why is it that only Laje people are the one that is everywhere? We won't bother because the system is working. So this is where I think we should be thinking of, not, this arrogation of zoning and zoning. It is your turn now, it should be my turn. I don't think this is where we should end up. Unfortunately, that's where we are. I do hope that soon we'll be able to move out of this cycle and actually face governance selflessly the way it should be done.
All right, let me allow Mr. Kekebeke respond to what he just said. Mr. Kekebeke, your response to Dr. Thomas.
Very idealistic, very good for the future, but of course that's contrary to the constitution of our country, which says that the deputy governor must come from a zone, a senatorial district, other than the one that the governor comes from. Again, our constitution does stipulate that government at all levels must be run in such a way so as to give a sense of belonging to all component parts of a local government area or a state or a federation. Dr. Thomas Ikube says right when he talks about the Western world. It's taken them years and years of practice to get to where they are. Hopefully, we will get there one day. But as it is, it's a constitutional matter. It's a matter of the ground norm of a nation that while running government, components parts must be given a sense of belonging by ensuring that people from all those parts are enlisted in government. Looking at it as it were, that appears sound for our transition, because our country is still in transition. We have this democracy in 1999, just 20 years. You cannot compare it to what has happened in 200 years of practice in America or in the West. Even in those countries, they still have challenges that they try to overcome. They are institutionalized. Their democracy is institutionalized. We are just building one. So I do hope, like he did say, that one day we will get there. But as things stand, and he admitted that that's a reality, the present governor, will have to pick from either the central or the north. Otherwise, there will be upheavals, and it will consume everyone.
And whilst he has not indicated that he's going to run, if he does have any interest, where he picks his deputy governor from also matters for him, if he has interest. But I also wanted to ask you, because he has signed the budget now into law, where do you think he should start from in terms of development?
Well, they have a budget. The budget was co-authored by the Akeredolu government, of which he was a part. I remember that it was presented before he became acting governor, and when he became acting governor, he represented it. So I am sure that he has his own input. Whatever is in that budget will represent what the Akeredolu Aiyedatiwa government had intended to do for the people of this state in 2024. I am sure as an individual he will have his priorities. Let him look at the budget and prioritize projects that will bring happiness to the greatest number of people. I know that they have a number of completed projects. I think there is a second flyover bridge that they were trying to build. I think that they should do something about that. I, as an individual, will recommend to them that if they have wealth creation handles in the budget, they should quickly implement that, because the people of this state need a lot of support in terms of supporting them to live meaningful standard of living, so as to reduce the hardship and the effect of the subsidy removal on citizens. The president of this country is trying to encourage governors and constituent parts of the federation to deliver, to do so much to address the suffering of the people. I think that programs in that sector, in that area, should be prioritized so that our people can breathe, according to Mr. President.
I have a minute more. My apologies. I have a minute more, and I just want Dr. Thomas to quickly also speak to this in terms of where the governor should begin when it comes to development.
Thank you so much. Two areas that I think Mr. Governor should pay lots of attention. Number one is power supply. President Tinubu signed the new bill for power into law, Electricity Act, and by that it means that the state can actually run its power supply. So what I'm expecting Mr. Governor to do is to invite some of these independent power plant suppliers to the state and let them position their gas plant and different source of power supply so that we'll be able to have uninterrupted power supply. As I speak to you, going to 3 months running, there has been no power supply in Obadeshida Road. And that is the heart of Akure. Oh my God, you can see what I'm saying. The power is out. So I think Mr. Governor should take cognizance of this and, leverage on what Mr. President has just signed into bill by inviting independent power supplies into the state so that we can have uninterrupted power supply. Number two is health. As I speak to you, most of the health institutions need rejigging. I don't want to use the word comatose, So let Mr. Governor give a lot of attention, because many of our doctors have all fled the state. So many of them have left.
And that's even a Nigerian thing. So his focus should be, because I'm out of time, I'm sorry that I had to interrupt you. His focus should be power and health for you. Thank you so much. It's been a really robust conversation. Thank you to the APC Southwest Chairman, Isaac Kekemeke, and to our social commentator, Dr. Thomas Wilson Ikubese. Thank you both for coming on.
Thank you so much.
And that standpoint for today is the last one for the year. Let me say Happy New Year to you in advance. Next time we'll be here would be January 6th, and then we'll be saying Happy New Year proper, and we'll be reviewing, probably just looking at the outlook for 2024. I am Precious Amayo. Remember, you can watch, there is a repeat broadcast at 11 p.m. tonight and 5 a.m. on Sunday morning. Thank you for watching.